Hello, everyone. Welcome to Supernatural Live Radio. Actually, this is Talk Now Radio that's being brought to you by Supernatural Radio Network. And today, our guest is going to be Jeffrey Sumber, and we're going to be discussing his book, I'm going to get that title wrong here in just a minute. Well, my mind's not where it belongs. Renew Your Vows. And this, I think, has to do with your marriage and how to put a new life or replace an old spark back into your new marriage or your vows. I tell you what, Jeffrey, I'm not batting 1,000 today, am I?
You're doing great, Roy. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I want to thank you for coming, and I got to assure you, I don't usually trip all over myself like that. I'm just having one of those days.
Well, it's all about relationships, right? So it's all good here.
Okay. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what got you interested in writing about this particular topic?
Sure. So my name is Jeffrey Sumber, and I did write this book, Renew Your Wows, 7 Powerful Tools to Ignite the Spark and Transform Your Relationship. I am a psychotherapist and a minister and an educator here in Chicago, and I have lived all over the country, and I have been studying relationships for about 20 years, and I have a theological degree as well as a psychology degree, and so I am interested in things of spirit and things of relationship, and when it all comes down to it, I really believe that that everything is about that space between me and you, and me and trees, and me and the air. Everything is about relationships and what's existing between us.
That's interesting. I would take it with you being a minister, you probably get a lot of people in your congregation um, wanting to come to you and get advice about their marriage to begin with. So that's probably had some influence. Am I right?
Well, I have a theology degree. I'm not a minister that stands in front of people and tells them what to do or what to think or anything like that. I do perform weddings, and so I spend a lot of time doing premarital counseling and counseling with couples once they are married. But yeah, people do come to me quite a bit with matters of faith and existence, and that big hairy question of what is it all about and why. I spend a lot of my time answering those questions the best I can for myself and asking the right questions, I hope, for others. But in terms of answers, I really believe that it's a personal answer, and that's one of the reasons I wrote this book, is because I ask a lot of questions, and I say it in the first few pages, even though it's easy to say that I'm a relationship expert because I've been studying this for so long. It doesn't mean that I have all your answers for you.
Well, I got to be honest with you on that one, Jeffrey. To me, the world's biggest expert in a marriage is the one that's just about 30, 40, 50 years married and has had a time to experience the whole thing, just like a parent's not really a parent until the child's grown up and left home.
Sure, and that holds water for a lot of people. And then I know that you and I both know, and everybody listening knows, plenty of couples that have been married for 40 or 50 years who just have a miserable time of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that time together or time in the ring basically means that you're an expert or that you've got it all covered.
Oh, I agree, and that's not really what I meant by that. That was really more or less applying to people who were actually learning from their mistakes as they went.
Yeah.
There are those, like you say, that do not learn from their mistakes, and 50
Right.
years later, they're at each other's throat on their way to the funeral.
Right. Totally.
I've not actually known couples like that, and I don't know. It just kind of boggles my mind how you can experience so many years and not learn anything from it.
Well, that's a really a great point, and I really think that comes back to personal experience and who we are. This book, Renew Your Vows, is about individuals and how we relate. It's not about the relationship itself as the separate entity. It's about you, and it's about me, and it's about how we do our lives individually and how it actually matches up or doesn't match up when it comes to how we relate to each other. So I think that a lot of our ups and downs in life all come back to how we are responding or how we are reacting to the world around us.
I think you make a lot of sense on that one. But from what I'm hearing, it sounds to me a lot like this book might be written talking to married couples, but it could also apply to a employee employer relationship, a friend to friend relationship, or any kind of relationship. The principles are the same. Am I pretty close to on target there?
100% on target. This is not a book for married couples. This is a book for every individual out there. That's why I think it's such an important book, because whether you're in a relationship or out of a relationship, this is all about you. It's how we wake up in the morning and how we relate to ourselves, and then how we relate to the world around us, whether it's employer, like you say, or coworkers or family members. We're all in relationship, and you can't escape it. Everywhere you go, when you go to the grocery store, you're in a relationship, just even for 30 seconds at the checkout line. How are you relating to the cashier when you're checking out? Are you blowing them off? Are you looking the other way? Are you smiling? Do you know this person, even just from a cursory relationship? But there are different levels of relationship just about all over the place. And how I wake up in the morning and what my intention is for my own life, and how I derive meaning in my life, that's what this book is about.
Yeah, I tend to really got a little experience, believe it or not, in what you're talking about, relating to people like in the checkout line or at the hospital, or people you just meet in passing. It's been my finding over the years, if you have a jovial personality and you're friendly and you like to make people laugh, especially people that work in stores or any form of public relation, you'll have a lot better luck with these people. They'll smile when they see you coming. They'll go bring stuff up to the counter for you, or
Right.
anything like that. If they
Yep.
like you, in other words. But on the other hand, if you're one that always comes in there complaining their prices are too high, or something of their nature, they're gonna dread to see you coming.
Absolutely, and I learned a lot about that from my wife, actually, because I am still a work in progress myself at just showing up with a smile everywhere, and my wife just seems to have popped out of the womb like that. She's just the happiest person, and she's kind to just about everybody, and everybody's got a personal struggle that we just don't see. I mean, she lives that stuff every day, and she has been one of the greatest teachers that I could have asked for when it comes to how do you relate to yourself and the world at the same time.
I got to tell you, in all honesty, I've been married 28 years. And
Wow.
not long after getting married, I began to realize that me and my wife were totally different people. And me and her went through this thing about she's going to change me and I'm going to change her. We'll get past this. Which
Uh-huh.
that, of course, led to X number of years of stormy marriage, arguing every day. But
Yep.
I tell you what I learned from all of that is that I really did a lot better with a wife that I had differences with, that I argued with, than I would have a wife that I actually would have gotten along with and never argued with, because this wife has helped me grow and mature, where the other wife, we would have just stagnated.
You're making a really important point there. I think that couples that don't ever seem to get under each other's skin, I'm a little bit suspicious. I got to tell you. Really, there's nothing that they do or say that challenges you. So what are you learning? What are you growing from in this relationship if you're not feeling challenged or in some way, brought to a higher level of yourself? And so, yeah, I believe that, we can read 100 relationship books at the store and never get as much from life as we will in an actual relationship, right? And that's where we get the greatest opportunities to grow and change and hone in on our true nature.
Yeah, like I say, wonderful learning experience time. It's just that you have to learn to appreciate it, and you have to learn to handle your perceptions. That's something you think. I think you were talking about earlier about in your relationship how you react to things.
Hmm.
Well, for me, most people react according to their perception of what's going on at the time. So, to me, a logical first step would be ask yourself, how am I perceiving? Because sometimes you might perceive something said as aggressive when it was meant humorously, for example.
Right. Right.
Uh, that having been said, how much would watching or learning from your perception affect the rest of your relationship and how you manage it?
Oh, I mean, I think perception is everything, right? I mean, it's if I believe that, one of the questions that I like to ask couples that are struggling on my couch is, do you really believe that your partner woke up this morning and said, "How can I mess up my other half?" Right? How can I hurt them? And 99.9% of couples, they look at the person sitting next to them and they go, "All right, well, they probably didn't wake up this morning wanting to upset me or hurt me," right? And then every once in a while, I get one that says, "Oh yes, absolutely," right? They
Oh,
woke up this morning, and he or she, they're out to get me, and perception does make a difference because 99% of us, if we can look at our partners and say, "You know what, they actually will me well," right? They want the best for me, even though it doesn't always feel like it, even though we get into rough places. Um, if we believe at, at the bottom of it all that this person is a good person who means me well, then if that's our perception from the gate, it's going to change the way we're able to turn things around and really make lemonade, basically.
oh, I can see that. I really can. I mean, if you're perceiving somebody to be aggressively against you, most people will either want to strike back or move away from. If
Right.
they're perceiving it as unintended, on the other hand, they find it more easier to be forgiving and patient and understanding.
Absolutely.
So just that one simple change in perception has already changed the entire direction that the whole situation was going in.
Yep. One of the things that always sticks out for me is Albert Einstein. Back in the beginning of the 20th century, he comes out as this famous scientist, and he comes out and he says, "You know what? The universe is inherently a friendly place." And all these scientists around the world were really upset, and they kept on saying, "This is not your place to say whether it's friendly or not. We're scientists. It's about ones and zeros. It's about numbers and ideas. It's not about philosophy or instilling science with a good or a bad." And it's all about perception, though, and that's what I get from Einstein. He said, "Well, it's all ones and zeros and it's all data, but our biases are what interprets the data, right? And our filter, the lens that we use in order to see the world, has to do with how we make those ones and zeros make sense in the world. So if we believe inherently that the universe is a friendly place and not out to get us and is actually conspiring in our favor rather than against us, then that's going to make a huge difference in how we interpret what occurs to us in our day."
Well, you just gave me some food for thought. I don't
Well,
know
that's the
why.
idea.
I don't know why, but it just hit me while I was listening to you the importance that the role esteem plays in your perception. I mean, I was thinking about when I heard you that what, if you got a low self-esteem of yourself, you're more
Hmm.
likely to perceive things as an attack than if you
Hmm.
have a high esteem of yourself.
Sure. Yep. Yep. Self-esteem is definitely a big part of it. And, why do I have low self-esteem? Because I believe the world is out to get me on some level. Because I don't believe that I am good enough to play in the world with all these other wonderful people.
Which means you need to turn around and take a look at yourself and see how you can build up your own faith in yourself.
Absolutely. And there is no one. I remember I had a client years ago, and this poor woman had been through so much in her life and was really just struggling, and she was actually a very religious person. I believe she was a Catholic, and she just said, I believe that God loves all of the children of the world except for me.
Oh
And
my God!
it really struck me. This is a woman who really believed that the holiest, we're all this holy children of God walking around the world, and she's the only one that doesn't deserve that. And so that just always stuck with me as,
It would me too.
When we wake up in the morning and we just feel like we're unworthy, how distorted that perception can be. I'm the only person that walks the face of the earth that doesn't deserve the grace of God. It's phenomenal.
You'd have to really ask yourself what that poor person had to contend with growing up. At least I would, because to have that bad of self-esteem, you would think her parents and everybody that raised her when she was growing up must have run her totally into the ground.
Yeah, well, she had a rough life, as I said, but even so, what does it take to live your life from that place of just misery, and versus Viktor Frankl, for example, who lives in this concentration camp and writes this amazing book, Man's Search for Meaning, afterwards, saying that no matter what the Nazis did to me, they could never take away my freedom. And the freedom, well, you had no freedom. You're in the middle of a terrible experience in a concentration camp. And his response is, well, you can beat me, you can kill my family, you can kill my body, but you can never take away my freedom to choose my attitude. I will always choose to be positive, no matter what. And that's just another one of those choice points that we have every day. How do I want to make my day different?
I think we should all ask ourselves that same question every day. I don't know, when me and my wife were dating, I told her back then that the one thing she would notice about me, and remember, this is when I was young and dumb still, but even back then I had this thing that each and every day you should do your best to improve yourself, whether you succeed or not.
Mm-hmm.
That eventually you'd end up being a pretty grown and mature person. It may take you time, but if you did that, you'd end up being a pretty, well-rounded individual one day.
It's a great intention.
And I've actually tried to live by that, and I think I have made some advancement. I mean, it's been some 20-odd years since I put my arm through a car window, so I guess that's a form of improvement.
Definitely.
Oh, let's see. Oh, okay. I thought I had a question in the chat room, but it wasn't a question. It was a comment. So now, is your book based on biblical principles?
It is. It is not. It is based on principles that I have learned along the way. Some of it is impacted by religion, but I would say that it's not a religious book per se. It's not rooted in the Bible in any way.
Okay. Yeah, you sound from talking
fact,
like you've learned from life's experiences.
Well, yeah, I've had a lot of life experiences, and I was going to say that one of the core components of the book, what I call the moving mountains premise, it actually took place in the middle of the Arizona desert when I was studying with a Native American man, and he brought me out into the middle of the desert and dropped a jug of water into the dirt and just drove off in his pickup truck. And before he left, he just pointed to this mountain out in the distance, and he said, "Move the mountain," and took off. And I was 23 years old and just completely bewildered. I was a city kid, straight out of New York at that time, and here I am in the middle of the desert with not a clue as to what to do, how to survive. I didn't know how long he was going to be, and more importantly, what was he thinking? He points to this mountain, and I have no idea what he meant. Am I supposed to literally move the mountain? Is that a metaphor? Is that a concept for me? And I sat there for hours and hours and hours. And in actuality, he didn't come back for 2 days. And I sat out there day and night for 2 days, just kind of losing my mind, not really sure if he was ever going to come back, and not really sure what I was supposed to do. And I was mad, and I was frustrated, and I was blaming him, and I was blaming my parents, and I was blaming my girlfriend at the time, and why do all these people do this to me? And just so mad. What kind of parents did I have that they would raise me in a way that I wouldn't know how to survive out in the desert? And I mean, you name it. I was just mad, and right before he got there again, I had this big epiphany, and what occurred to me was that I had been spending all of my energy projecting all the blame and all the accusations outside of myself. I was projecting at this mountain all the way out there in the horizon. I was projecting at my parents, at this teacher of mine, at my girlfriend, and nothing was about me. It was all about everybody else. And I realized at that moment that this had been kind of the core of my life at the time, was just blaming everybody else. And I realized that relationships for me had also been about everyone else doing it wrong and not ever taking responsibility for my part of things. And it was a huge turning point for me. I woke up that day, and I became a man in a lot of ways, because my relationship started to really, really change. And that's a cornerstone of this book, is taking personal responsibility for how we show up in relationships.
I think that's just simply fantastic, to be honest with you. I mean, if more people, and this is my personal opinion, took the time to, instead of blaming the rest of the world, look at themselves and see what they could do differently, people would finally begin to learn you cannot change the other people. It doesn't matter if they are doing you wrong. All change has to come from inside the individual. But what you can do is you can change yourself. You can quit leaving yourself in a position where people can do something to you. You can change how you perceive it. You can change how you react to it. You can turn it from a lemon into lemonade. There's all kinds of things you could do. You don't have to let it destroy you, in other words.
So true. Yep.
So few people actually stop and realize that, because, like you say, and like you were doing, they're so busy blaming everybody else.
Yep.
And
that's the truth.
It's easy to do when, in all actuality, you're sometimes reacting to what other people do. You can see why the other people are causing it, at least, to some extent. And it's not as easy to see what choices you had in the given situation.
Well, and as a therapist, I sit in my chair staring at couples every day, and I hear this every day about what this person has done to me, and why this person is this and that and won't do this and that. And it just is a constant reminder of this lesson for me that, as long as we keep blaming everyone else rather than just taking a deep breath and listening and really showing up as ourselves fully without projecting anything out, it just, we stay stuck, basically.
Yeah.
There's no mountain that we can move that is outside of ourselves.
Oh yeah. If you, for example, can't get your wife or husband, whoever is in charge of it, to wash dishes on a regular basis, complaining and bemoaning and yelling at them, you're just going to stay miserable your whole life. On the other hand, if you decide, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and wash it. Or you're going to decide, I don't need this here, mate. I'm just going to step out of this relationship and not have to contend with. Well, now you're taking steps to at least make your life closer to what you want it to be instead of complaining that it ain't what you want it to be.
Absolutely. I like to talk a lot in this book about the difference between needs and expectations. And this is something that I teach just about every day in my practice. And it's something that I believe with all of my being, that we all have needs. But a need is just about me, right? I need to feel loved. I need to feel full. I need to feel safe. Those are needs. But expectations are about other people. I need you to love me. I need you to fulfill me. I need you to take care of me. And so it's a fundamental rift in so many millions of relationships out there, that we take our needs that are completely about ourselves and we make them about our partners or about our family members or about our bosses. And so we all have these expectations that you're supposed to do this. I remember I had this couple, this woman, they were married for many, many years, and she called me up and said, I'm ready to divorce my husband after 21 years, and, he's a terrible husband. And I said, I understand, ma'am, please come on in. And she drags this poor guy in, and they sit on the couch, and she just goes off on this man for 25 minutes until she gets to the kicker, which is, what's the point of being married if this man won't take out the garbage? Right? And it stopped me in my tracks, and I I chuckled a little bit because I found it particularly funny. And the guy just looks at me with this wearisome face and shrugs his shoulders, like, do you have an answer for that? And it really drove it home for me that this woman really believed that there was a list of things that came with the marriage license, that were requirements, that were expectations that were to be fulfilled by her partner. And this poor guy sat there and just said, I don't like taking out the garbage, but I really don't like it when you tell me to. And that was really the core of their problem, was that there was no autonomy, there was no partnership, there was just expectation. And so we had to do a lot of work with that couple to get them to a place of personal responsibility, right? And what would it look like for this woman to take out the darn garbage by herself and invite her husband to participate if he felt like it, because there were a million other things that this guy was doing for her that she didn't really appreciate, because it was all an expectation. Well, you're my husband, so you're supposed to do these things. Unbelievable to me.
I tell you what, my sister Jeanette, me and her were both raised in a Christian family, and you know the kind of values about the woman's place in the house.
Mm-hmm.
She took it upon herself for a 30-year marriage before her husband died, that she would bring him his food to his recliner while he watched TV, bring him his drinks when he wanted a drink. Wait on him like hand and foot, cook, clean. She wanted to be the model wife. Now, her husband didn't put her through any of this. This is just the way she was taught a good, holy woman lives.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then she ended up putting herself through 30 years of acting like a slave that was not really even necessary to begin with.
And the hard thing is, who doesn't like to be waited on, right? It's hard to say, you know what, honey, I'm going to go get my own dinner. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it and all, but I don't want you waiting on me. And, it's hard for any of us to say, nah, I don't like being treated like that. Mm-mm. It really pushes us to ask ourselves those questions. What kind of relationship am I looking for? Right? Do I want an equal partnership, or do I really believe that I married this person so that they are serving me?
And some people actually do go into it expecting it too.
I have found that, yeah.
Now, in the chat room, somebody's asking, how can we communicate better with our spouse?
Great question, and it's one of the questions, right? I mean, how do we communicate? And in my book, so the book actually comes with a 50-page action guide that you can download, and there are exercises and important components to the book that are practical exercises that you can perform with your partner. One of them is what I call the check-in, and actually anybody can download the check-in for free on my website, and that's at jeffreysumber.com. And you can get.
I'm glad you did that.
It's a 5-page mini workbook called the check-in, and it is the template for how to communicate with your partner. And the premise is basically there are 3 layers of communication to just about any conversation. And there are 3 levels of it. The 3 levels are appreciations, needs, and gifts. Okay? Appreciations, needs, and gifts. So the first layer is appreciation. What can I tell this person that will make them smile? Right? I appreciate you. I am so grateful that you made coffee this morning. I love your eyes, right? You are just the biggest gift that I could imagine, right? Just 3 really sweet things, kind things. They don't have to be earth-shattering things, but they need to be real things. And from there, you go to the heart of it, which is, well, what do I need, right? Any communication, we're really getting to the point of it, which is I need something. But the difference is, as I was saying earlier, there's a huge difference between needs and expectations. So in communication, I defy any of our listeners right now that when you do this, it isn't hard to not make it about your partner or about the person you're talking to, right? If I say I need, can you speak it without saying you, right? Can you say I need to feel loved and not ever say I need you to love me, why don't you love me? I need you to take out the trash, why don't you take out the trash? It's so challenging for so many people to just keep the communication about their own needs, right? So we start with appreciations, which is about the other person, and then we settle into, so I need to feel, and then we finish with gifts. Now there's a difference between gifts and presents. We all get presents for Christmas. We all get presents for our birthday. There is a tremendous difference between a present, which could be, a nice wrapped up thing that we got from Target, and
nice wrapped up ugly tie.
Right. Yep. Exactly. There's your tie, or it's a gift card for Starbucks. Whatever it might be, and that's nice. That's a present, though. A gift is actually a present that I place myself inside of, right? So a gift is something that I enter into, and that might be I create a craft. One of the best gifts I ever got from my wife. I'm a kind of a coffee freak, and I make espresso for myself every morning. And she started taking pottery about a year ago, and she came home with this nice gift box, all wrapped and everything for my birthday, and inside were these 2 beautifully crafted espresso cups, and had our initials on the bottom with a heart on them, and they were just my favorite color, and they were just gorgeous and perfect. And I got all teared up because, this was one of the most meaningful gifts I've ever received, because she got me. It wasn't an ashtray, it wasn't a mug. It was these espresso cups, because she knows how much I enjoy it, and that I take 20 minutes every morning to meticulously brew my little coffee. And so that's a gift, right? It'd be different if she went to Amazon and ordered 2 cups. That's a present. A gift is something we put ourselves inside of. A present might be a gift certificate for a massage. A gift may be I actually start rubbing your shoulders and trying to ease your long day. So again, communication was the original question, and look how we're talking about all these other things. It's something that we tend to lose sight of when we're communicating in general. Am I appreciating this person in front of me as a child of God, as a blessing in my life in front of me? Am I communicating clearly about my needs, about who I am in this moment, without making it about the other person? And what am I willing to give, right? After all is said and done, am I offering of myself, or am I just looking to take? That, to me, is the cornerstone of healthy communication.
It's also that one part about giving of yourself, especially if you ask me, in my opinion, from what I've learned in life, the very cornerstone of any relationship with anybody that you want to have succeed. The more that they know and they feel confident that you really care about them and you really appreciate them, uh, the more camaraderie you're going to have as time goes on.
Absolutely. Entirely. I'm always surprised, it always amazes me when people are just nice, right? When people just want to do something nice for me, even though they don't really know me, or, they don't, there's no expectation between us. It's just, hey, let me drop off this, this lawnmower, so, whatever.
So George down the road can mow his lawn because he don't have one of his own.
Exactly, right. It's like, well, here in Chicago we do a lot of snow blowing, and so, part of the unspoken agreement with my neighbors is, whoever gets out there first, we will blow the sidewalk out, and so, whoever it is typically will get out there and just clear the whole sidewalk down the whole block, and that's just, it's just a kindness, and it's just there's no expectation. It's just what people do, and even in the big city, you can show up for your fellow neighbor.
Yeah, I mean, I live in the big city. I'm in Houston, Texas, and I've been disabled totally and completely for 2 years now with my COPD. And there's a guy that comes by here to check on me on a regular basis, and he helps out from time to time, and he's been known to come over and mow my grass for me. I mean, this is the kind of guy that can be a big annoyance to talk to because he has his opinion he shares, but he never hears half of what you're saying, in other words. And always knows how to tell you how to live your life. But if you look past that, he's also the same guy that's volunteering to put a new attic door up for you or to mow your yard for you and to cover you. It's just a matter of saying, can I accept this guy the way he is? Because he does have a good heart.
Right. Absolutely. And at the same time, it's also important for him to know that it's okay to ask for permission before you offer your opinion. People don't seem to get that at times, right? If I'm doing you a favor, then I've sort of bought your audience for a little while, and that's not exactly the case in my book. There are plenty of people in my life that I don't agree with their politics or the way their outlook on life, and I don't feel like I have to sit and listen to it if it's disrespectful in some way. But I would sit and listen if they asked permission or they asked if it was all right to chat for a little while, and was I open to hearing how they thought. It's different when someone starts yelling at you from the corner about their beliefs versus somebody who knocks on your door and asks permission. Do you have a moment? Are you willing to talk? To me, that's a bit more respectful.
It's a courtesy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know that me personally, I'm one of those people that believe in the freedom of speech in America, and that means that you're free to talk about things that do not agree with what I my belief structure is. And I'm not required to agree with you. You're not required to agree with me. It's just
Right.
simply a discussion after all. Um,
Right.
let's not try to control each other. I think it's important that people are allowed to express themselves as far as that being part of how you accept them as they are.
Absolutely, and I am a firm believer in America and the freedom of speech. I think people misunderstand what freedom of speech actually is. You know, I will defend your right to say whatever it is you believe until the cows come home, but I don't have to listen to it.
Well, yeah, and you don't necessarily have to agree with it. You're just, you're respecting his right to it. In other words, it's all you're really doing.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And what I don't agree with is just because it's freedom of speech doesn't mean that you could abuse it by mean mouthing people and just starting flame wars. And I mean, do you think our founding fathers had this in mind when they spoke of freedom of speech?
Oh boy, that's another day conversation right there. Is
Yeah.
what our founding fathers really intended with our Constitution and the Declaration.
Yeah, I could tell you some things that most people in church would swear was a lie.
Yeah,
But yet it was written down and documented by founding fathers themselves.
right.
I
Yep.
don't know. I'm saying this because I'm pretty sure you probably read it just based on what you just said.
Well, there's definitely a lot of disagreement about the intention of our republic.
There sure is. But in all honesty, though, it is historically recorded. The reason that, to me, it seems to me why the contention continues to exist is simply because the party that wants the Constitution to agree with them refuses to look at the evidence.
Yeah, I don't know if you can narrow down what party that is because I don't really personally see a difference in our parties personally.
I know me and my son Josh had the same conversation not long ago before he moved out, and he thinks that we need to get rid of both the Democrats and Republicans and just come up with a whole entirely new party.
It would be a fascinating experiment.
I don't think it could harm us much worse than we already are.
I would just love to get something done, and I would love to see people getting their needs met by a government that is actually here for the people.
Well, right now, from what I'm reading online and at Facebook and other sites, is the candidates that I'd be most likely to be behind in a presidential would probably be Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, or Hillary Clinton.
Uh-huh.
Now, to me,
Well,
Bernie Sanders is probably in the lead of those three, not for chauvinistic reasons, um, but he has to
must
me
be
been
the eyebrows.
he's been the most outspoken.
Well, he's definitely amusing to watch. He's definitely animated and he says what he wants to say, and I actually respect him just because of that, because he doesn't seem to be too concerned about doing it right so that
He's
he
not
gets
concerned about who
elected.
he takes off. He don't pull punches.
Right, right.
And I can
So,
tend to respect that in a person. To me, a person that don't pull punches is a person that you usually 9 times out of 10 know where you stand with them.
right, right. Yeah, but I don't. I actually I take part in local politics here in Chicago, and I'm a precinct committeeman just for my neighborhood, and so I know my neighbors pretty well, and it's a sad thing in my experience, just that people have lost sight of just what it means to be neighbors and have a community that they're really invested in, rather than once we get to the national level, everything just gets so blown out of proportion and distorted that we're talking, this book's about relationships, and people have a way of losing sight of what those relationships really mean, especially in the body politic of our republic. What does it mean to be in relationship with people who are in need, or people who don't see things the way you see them, but still believe in a larger cause that I believe in? And we we could discuss that forever. It's just something that I feel very strongly about. And when I write a book about relationships, people just assume that it's about marriage. But I really believe that my book is about all relationships, from family to politics and government to the whole world. We're all a big community of people trying to relate. And when folks in one religion or in one country just decide that they have the right way and they have a right to wipe out anybody who disagrees, I mean, it goes against everything in my book and everything in my heart. It's just so sad to me that people just lose sight of
Everybody wants to be their
how to
brother's
relate.
keeper and not their own keeper.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's destroying America today.
Well, it's destroying the world.
That's true. Now, in the chat room, she says, I feel like I give a lot, but I don't get a lot back sometimes. And I bet there's a lot of people who have that same feeling, but I don't think it's a black and white answer to that comment, is there?
Well, I try not to take out the clipboard and measure who's giving what. I really encourage people to give from their heart and to give fully. And if they're not getting needs met for themselves, that's a different line of questioning. Why don't I get my needs met? What do I need, and how can I get some of those needs met by myself? And what would I need to get from outside of myself? But I don't really encourage people, and this is a challenge for a lot of couples in particular, because we do hear often, I'm the one who does everything, and I'm the one who keeps the relationship going, and I'm the one who initiates sex, and I'm the one who does all this stuff. It's hard not to go there sometimes. I get that. But I really do believe that it is a loss of center for ourselves when we start to blame anybody else and start to focus on why I'm better than you are because I'm giving more. And so I really encourage us all to take that deep breath and just focus on being the best person I can be. And if the person next to me that I'm trying to relate to isn't being the best person they can be, then that's probably going to end up, requiring a change at some point. But I can't change them, and that's the difference.
Change has to come from within them. And in all honesty, in a situation like that, does the individual who put the question in there, is it that maybe she's getting it back as much as what she should be getting back or thinks she should, but not in the way that she would expect it back? I mean, let's say taking out the trash is more important to her than washing the dishes. And you're taking out the trash all the time, not touching the dishes. Well, you're giving in to her, but it's not what she's looking for or expecting, in other words. Makes it hard for them to recognize what they're getting.
Absolutely. Yep, I agree.
Of course, I don't think garbage or dishes would be a determining factor, and that was just something to use for an analogy. But yeah, like you, I've been married and been around the block for several times, and some of this you can see in your own relationship at home. You can see other people fighting about it in front of you instead of taking it to the back of the house, and you begin to figure these things out over time. But in your case, if you sit down and write a whole book that gives people something to think about, then I think at least the people in their 20s first coming into relationships of different kinds are, getting proactive in them at that age, have better tools to try to forge ahead than somebody without the book.
Oh, I totally agree with that. I walked over and handed this college student who's just 20 years old, halfway through college, and I handed him my book. Neighbor kid, and my wife said, he's not married, and he probably won't be married for a number of years. Why are you giving him the book? And I would have been delighted to have received a book like mine when I was 20 years old, because it orients a person to be looking at relationship and at the world in a very different light and from a different perspective. So, like you said earlier, your perception is everything. And so I believe that whether you're 20 years old or 50 or 75 or whatever it might be, that this is the kind of book that will help you reorient yourself in your life so that you take personal responsibility and stop projecting onto other people.
And I think projecting is where a lot of stuff lies at. And by the way, I wanted to thank you earlier for mentioning your website because I had forgotten up to that point, and I was fixing to ask you for it during the next time I spoke, but you beat me to it.
Oh, yeah.
But I sometimes get wrapped up in a conversation, and I forget to do that.
Yeah, not a problem. My website's www.jeffreysumber.com, and my name is JEFFREY SUM as in Mary, B as in boy, ER.com, and there's a lot of stuff on that website. Some free downloads for relationship, and there's a blog that you can follow, and I highly recommend that folks, if you're interested in what I had to say today, to check it out and join the mailing list and all that.
And a link to the website will be posted over at YouTube along with the show when I archive it over there. And Jeffrey, I will be sending you a link to that. It may be tomorrow or the next day before I get it because I'm going to end up putting it in my Windows Live Movie Maker and adding pictures to it so that YouTube would take it because it won't take it in audio format. It wants it to be in video format.
Okay, sure.
So it takes me extra time.
Hopefully you have some good shots of me.
If not, I'll contact you. But I think I saw a good shot of you on your website.
Oh yeah, I'm just kidding.
Also, if you have any pictures
get my
at all,
good angle. What's that?
Also, if there's any pictures of you all on the internet, I can Google it in Google Images, and it has pictures of everybody off of everybody's website.
Oh yeah. There's plenty of pictures of me up online.
Alrighty, now we got about looks like 7 minutes left. Is there anything that you would like to cover that I haven't thought to cover yet?
Wow, I feel like we've been all over the board today. It's been a fun conversation. I don't get to talk about politics too much because everyone wants to talk about relationships.
Well, there is a political relationship too,
Absolutely, and that's what I think. I appreciated this conversation more than most because I think you get that, and this is really just a template for every relationship, not just marital or romantic relationships. So that I really appreciate. What else do we want to say about this book? One thing that if I could, mention that I find as just a practical thing in relationship is something to do with what I call the rules of engagement. And I think a lot of couples, in particular romantic couples, really benefit from talking about their process instead of talking about their problems. And that's a fairly profound concept for a lot of people because everybody's really good at talking about problems, right? Here's what we're struggling with. Here's the problem. We've been dealing with this forever. And what I really stress to folks, and I do work a lot with couples on Skype and things like that. So I have the benefit and the gift really of working with couples from all over the world at this point. And one of the things that I hear over and over again is this focus on problems instead of process. Now, what is process? Process is how we talk, how we disagree, how we agree. It's just I like to think of it as these big steel pipes that all the sludge of our problems gets to go funneling through. And these steel pipes don't corrode, they don't break, they are just enormous containers and vessels for all of our crap that just goes flying through all the time. And what people forget is that if you don't have an amazing system of process these big steel pipes, then all the stuff, all the problems start to corrode whatever system you've got in place and leak and basically start to flavor your entire life with the stench of your problems. And so process requires an understanding and an agreement between two people in particular about, well, what do we agree to do when we disagree, or how are our rules of engagement when someone is upset or wants to discuss a difficult topic? Do we have an agreement in place? And so, again, one of the things in the action guide that comes with it's a free download that comes with the book, is there's a whole chapter on how to develop rules of engagement that really create the backbone of your process together. For example, I had a couple, I have a number of couples where this is an issue, but I had one recently where every day the woman was coming home from work, and she just was hating her job, and she wouldn't be 2 steps through the door before she would just be dumping just every detail of how terrible her boss was to her husband. And this poor guy, was just so frustrated because he loved his wife and he felt bad for her, but he actually had some ups and downs with his day too. And he actually, just wanted to eat dinner or just wanted to watch the game or something. And not that he didn't care about his wife, but there was no discussion and no permission, no checking in with the other person. Is this a good time, right? Are you open to just listening? Is it okay if I dump for a few minutes? And so she was just taking for granted, once again, which is something that a lot of us do, well, you're my husband, so you're supposed to listen to me. Who else is going to listen to me? And actually, that's not the point, right? Because as partners, we want to listen. We want to be there for our other half. And yet, we also want to be invited to listen. We want to have the freedom to choose to listen, not the expectation or the obligation that, yes, I have to listen right now, even though it's not a good time for me. So rules of engagement, they help you plan your responses, and they keep your interactions clean and kind. And that's something that I really just want to add there before we end today, because I think, I truly want couples to thrive. I want people to wake up in the morning and feel grateful that they have a person in their life that they adore and who they feel adored by. And one of the ways we can establish that in a deeper way is to start listening to ourselves and listening to our partner and taking responsibility for the difference. And so that's why I hope folks will download my book on the ebook or get the paperback or go to your bookstore and get it. I really do think that it's a game-changing book, and I hope that more and more people will stumble on it and get changed by it, because I think that it's, like I said before, it's just about the whole planet, really. It's that important to me.
Well, I'm going to be totally upfront and honest with you. I have not yet read your book. Having said that, however, I would personally, and I don't do this often, go out on a limb and recommend your book, Sight Unseen, just simply based on our conversation here today.
Well, I appreciate that.
Because I could tell by the things that you've been saying, the things you've been explaining, that you have got a good grasp and understanding of the subject at hand and a lot of experience in it. And, you've been giving plenty of good advice right here live on the air. Why wouldn't your book be good?
Well, I agree with you. I have to say, I don't like to hold back, and so I'm just giving material from my book and from my life, and if it helps you, then I am grateful. It's an honor to be able to beyond this planet and to make a difference. And just these conversations and the little things that we do, all of us, that makes a difference in the world. So that's why I'm here.
Well, I show that it's just now 2:01, so we're overlapping another host if there's one scheduled behind me, so I guess you better cut and run. However, I would like to leave the door open if you have some future books or events or something you want to come back and tell my listeners about.
I'd be delighted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and I've enjoyed the conversation. I hope you enjoy what's left of the weekend.
Likewise. You as well. Thanks, Horst.
Bye-bye. Okay, everybody, remember, I am not going to be airing this show on Fridays anymore. This is my last Friday show. Starting next week, it's going to be this Saturday. We're moving it up one day because I have a doctor at the VA I just started seeing that is only available on Fridays. By scheduling it for a Saturday, I'll never have a VA appointment that I can think of for that unless I go into ER. So thank you for bearing with me. This will be posted up at YouTube tomorrow the next day. And I hope to see you here this coming up Saturday. Not tomorrow, but the next Saturday. Bye-bye, everybody.